When you think of handheld gaming, one name stands taller than all the rest: the Game Boy. From its humble start in the late 80s to its final form in the 2010s, it didn't just lead the industry, it redefined it. In today's video, we'll examine every iteration, uncovering not only what made each console unique, but how Nintendo shaped an entire generation of portable gaming. And yes, later we'll count down 20 of the greatest games across these systems. Let's get into it.
They said it wasn't humanly possible, but now you can have all the power and excitement of Nintendo right in the palm of your hand. Introducing Game Boy. It's portable, it's in stereo, and its games are interchangeable. Plus, Game Boy comes with the outrageous new game, Tetris. And for head-to-head competition, use the revolutionary video link and blow your opponent away. Game Boy, only from Nintendo. Now you're playing with power, portable power.
The original Game Boy debuted in Japan in April 1989 and made its way to North America that summer. Designed by Gunpei Yokoi, who had previously created the Game & Watch series, the Game Boy was a deliberate departure from the flashy, power-hungry handhelds being developed at the time. It featured a monochrome screen, a modest 8-bit processor, a solid plastic build, but it also had a long battery life and an intuitive control system that made it easy to use and hard to put down. Unlike the more technically advanced Atari Lynx or Sega Game Gear, the Game Boy prioritised endurance and cost efficiency. Nintendo bet on software and accessibility over hardware specs, and the gamble worked. The Game Boy sold over 64 million units worldwide, and its software library exceeded 1,000 titles. A key reason for its success was Tetris, the bundled puzzle game that captivated players of all ages, and helped the system break into non-traditional gaming audiences. But it wasn't just Tetris. The Game Boy introduced portability to established franchises like Super Mario, Metroid and Zelda, and gave rise to new ones like Pokemon.
You can take it to the lake. You can take it on a date. You can take it to a boring picture show. Ha! You can take it to the game. Ow! You can take it on a plane. You can take it anywhere you want to go.
Go with the power of the NES, right in the palm of your hand. Game Boy.
By the mid-1990s, the original Game Boy hardware was showing its age. Nintendo made small revisions like the Game Boy Pocket, which was slimmer and ran on fewer batteries, and the Japan-exclusive Game Boy Light, which added a backlit screen. But in 1998, Nintendo finally released a true successor, the Game Boy Color.
The Game Boy Color Guide to the Countryside. Girls can often play hard to get. Tread carefully past the wild hairy beasts that often roam free. Local takeaways should definitely be avoided. Armed gangs seem to be everywhere, and vehicle emissions are even worse than they are in the city. So, when playing Game Boy Color in the countryside, be careful.
With improved processing power and a colour screen, it was backwards compatible with the entire original Game Boy library, and this made it a smart transitional device. It wasn't as powerful as the Game Boy Advance that would follow, but it was just powerful enough to breathe new life into handheld gaming. Games can now use a colour palette of up to 56 colours on screen, which was a huge improvement over the original 4-shade grayscale. The Game Boy Color sold around 50 million units worldwide and had a software library of roughly 600 to 700 titles depending on region. It supported enhanced versions of classic Game Boy games and saw new entries in flagship franchises. Most notably, it became the home of Pokemon Gold, Silver and Crystal, which helped maintain the platform's cultural dominance through the turn of the millennium. What stood out most about the Game Boy Color was its ability to extend the life of the original hardware without completely abandoning the existing user base.
It's a jungle in there. Donkey Kong Country rated E for everyone on Game Boy Color. Get into it.
It gave players an upgraded experience without forcing them to give up on what they already loved. It was an effective bridge, keeping Nintendo in the game until their next true generational leap. The Game Boy Advance was a significant technological leap. Released in 2001, it was Nintendo's first 32-bit handheld. With a widescreen layout, a powerful ARM processor, and graphical capabilities similar to the Super Nintendo. It was also fully backwards compatible with both Game Boy and Game Boy Color titles, giving it access to an instant back catalogue at launch. The original model had no backlight, which was widely criticised, but Nintendo quickly responded with the Game Boy Advance SP in 2003, which added a front-lit and later backlit screen and a clamshell design. The SP model was a hit and became the preferred version for most players. In 2005, the company released the Game Boy Micro, a stylish but niche variant that was smaller than a credit card and only played GBA games. Sales across all Game Boy Advance models exceeded 81 million units, and the system saw the release of over 1,500 unique games. Its library was packed with high-quality 2D platformers, RPGs, strategy games, and remakes of SNES classics. It was also the platform where Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire released, continuing the franchise's momentum. The Game Boy Advance proved that 2D games still had a place in the 3D-dominated industry. It was a system where quality came first, and it set the gold standard for handheld game design at the time. With the Advance, Nintendo once again showed that great games don't need cutting-edge visuals, they just need thoughtful design and accessibility.
Great Mario games from Nintendo, only on Nintendo DS.
The Nintendo DS was initially introduced as a third pillar, not a direct replacement for the Game Boy line, but a new direction entirely. Released in 2004, it featured dual screens, with the lower one being a touchscreen, as well as a microphone, wireless communication, and backwards compatibility with Game Boy Advance cartridges. At launch, its design was unconventional and even polarising, but it quickly found its footing with the help of strong software. Games like Nintendogs, Brain Age, and Super Mario Bros. Brought in a new generation of players, while deeper titles like The World Ends With You and Mario Kart DS kept long-time fans engaged. The DS went on to become the best-selling handheld of all time, moving over 154 million units worldwide. Its library exceeded 2,000 games, and it catered to one of the broadest demographics ever seen in gaming, from children and teens to adults and seniors. Its success changed how developers approached handheld gaming. Stylus interaction, microphone input, and local wireless multiplayer became standard features. The DS wasn't just a success, it was a revolution in design philosophy. It turned the idea of what a handheld console could be on its head, and the entire industry took notice.
Why do we play 3DS?
Because battles can happen anywhere.
Because playing in the dark is so awesome.
It's scary.
Because driving your family crazy is crazy fun.
Because visiting our friends is just the best.
Duh.
Why do we play 3DS?
Because it's Nintendo. Why do you play?
Nintendo 3DS and 2DS bring games, characters, and friends together. Games rated E for everyone.
The Nintendo 3DS launched in 2011, adding 3D visuals to the DS formula, along with increased horsepower, improved Street Pass and Spot Pass features, and a much more robust online store. The hardware itself saw multiple revisions: 3DS XL, the 2DS, the new 3DS, and their respective XL counterparts. Each model refined the experience, offering different price points and features. Initial sales were sluggish. The system launched at a high price and lacked strong software at release. But a price cut just months later, along with the introduction of flagship titles like Mario Kart 7, Fire Emblem, and Pokemon X and Y, reversed its fortunes. Nintendo's Ambassador program even offered early adopters free games to maintain goodwill. The 3DS eventually sold around 76 million units, and the system's library includes over 1,300 games. It became home to some of the most refined portable entries in franchises like Zelda, Animal Crossing and Fire Emblem, and it provided a final send-off to the traditional dual-screen handheld era. In 2020, production officially ceased. The 3DS was at the end of the line, not just for the DS family, but for Nintendo's standalone handheld consoles. After decades of dominance, the baton was passed to the hybrid Switch, but the legacy left behind by the 3DS and its predecessors remains unmatched. Across every generation, the Game Boy family consistently introduced new ideas. Some were risky, some were safe, but most of them stuck. Features like clamshell design, dual screens, wireless multiplayer, touchscreen input, and digital downloads became industry norms, thanks to how seamlessly they were introduced on Game Boy successors. Beyond sales and features, the cultural legacy of the Game Boy is immeasurable. It normalised portable gaming, introduced new genres to mass audiences, and made icons out of characters like Pikachu, Samus and Link, not just on TVs but in your hand. The Game Boy wasn't just successful, it reshaped the expectations of what gaming could be. With over 3 decades of handheld gaming behind it, the Game Boy family built an immense and diverse library, from genre-defining first-party titles to hidden third-party gems. Across 5 platforms, thousands of games were released, each one a reflection of its time, its hardware and its audience. But some titles stood above the rest. Now we're going to take a look at 20 of the very best games ever released across the Game Boy family. 4 from each system, starting with the original and ending with the 3DS. Each game here helped shape the identity of its platform, and in many cases handheld gaming itself. Tetris was the simplest, most perfect match for the original Game Boy. Its addictive, endlessly replayable formula was easy to learn and impossible to master, making it universally appealing. Paired with the Game Boy at launch, it became a cultural touchstone and sold millions of copies. More than just a time filler, Tetris underscored the Game Boy's strengths: long battery life, pick up and play action, and mass market accessibility. It helped shape the gaming habits for a generation and remains synonymous with portable gaming to this day. This was the first full Zelda experience on a handheld, with surprisingly deep storytelling, clever puzzles, and richly layered dungeons. It proved that complex adventure games could thrive outside a console setting. Link's Awakening also showcased Nintendo's ability to translate beloved franchises into smaller screens without losing magic. Its design balance, memorable characters, and entirely self-contained story made it a portable masterpiece that still garners praise decades later. Pokemon reinvented the notion of collecting. Catching creatures, battling friends via cable, and organising your team. It became a phenomenon, sparking a franchise that remains a global powerhouse today. But beyond the hype, Red and Blue were cultural cornerstones. They introduced a living world that encouraged trading and exploration, reinforcing the Game Boy's identity as a communal social device. Building on Metroid's atmospheric roots, Metroid 2 brought suspense, exploration, and tense combat to a handheld format. Its limited hardware didn't hold back the mood, with carefully crafted environments and tight gameplay. This title added critical lore to the series and laid the groundwork for future handheld Metroid games. It proved that thematic depth and immersive worlds weren't the exclusive domain of home consoles. The Legend of Zelda Oracle of Ages and Seasons offered two complementary quests, one focused on time manipulation, Ages, and the other on environmental transformation, Seasons. Played individually, they were great. Played as intended, they reflected Nintendo's capacity for creative design and narrative layering. They showcased how colour and modest hardware upgrades let developers deeper mechanics and storytelling. Each Oracle game was rich in secrets, characters, and design sophistication. A departure from Mario simplicity, Wario Land 3 explored inventive level design where failure often became benefit. Getting hit charged Wario in useful ways like becoming a ghost or cargo. Combining humour, engaging mechanics and an expansive world, this game pushed the metal further than many better known titles, offering a clever and subversive take on platforming that still inspires acclaim. Crystal refined the Gen 2 experience with animated sprites, a female playable character, and the legendary Sagoon roaming the world. It deepened immersion and included extra narrative content over gold and silver. It wasn't just a visual refresh, it raised the bar for handheld RPG polish and player investment, setting new standards for subsequent Pokemon titles. A beautifully faithful port of a classic Japanese RPG, Dragon Warrior 3 carried over every nuance, job classes, a sprawling world and a deep story. It's remembered as one of the most authentic JRPGs on the system. Its presence on the Game Boy Color gave players a portable epic that had previously belonged only to consoles, proving that handhelds could host expansive adventures without sacrificing depth. Metroid Fusion delivered polished, suspenseful gameplay with refined controls, atmospheric sound and tight pacing. It melded exploration with story in a way only Nintendo could. Besides expanding Samus's story, Fusion represented how handhelds could deliver cinematic, emotionally driven action sequences, creating a deeply cinematic portable experience. Often hailed as the best handheld Castlevania, Aria of Sorrow brought RPG-style progression, a compelling story, and crisp, beautiful graphics. Its Tactical Soul system offered endless customization. It balanced gravity-defying platforming with strategic depth, redefining what a handheld action game could offer to both hardcore and casual players. This turn-based strategy game took command literally. Units, grids, terrain and tactics all combined for one of the most accessible and addictive strategy games ever. The art style balanced charm with clarity, making planning battles intuitive. It was also a gateway. Players who'd never touched a strategy game before found themselves hooked. A perfect blend of challenge and polish, it expanded what handheld games could be. Co-developed with Capcom, the Minish Cap added imaginative design, with worlds shifting in scale and a mischievous hat companion aiding exploration. It felt brand new, while rooted in Zelda's legacy. That inventive spirit, shifting perspectives, summoning new powers, creative storytelling made it a standout entry that elevated the GBA screen into something richly expansive. Mario Kart DS is a high-octane racer with tight controls, inventive course design and online multiplayer. This version made karting portable in a meaningful way, especially with wireless and online play. Its success underscored how Nintendo's most casual franchises thrive in handheld form. Fast, fun and perfect for on-the-go bursts of play. The World Ends With You is an experimental gem, and has multi-character combat across both screens, slurred speech motif, urban soundtracks, and a cutting-edge aesthetic. It dared to be different and delivered something unforgettable. Rooted in Tokyo's Shibuya district, with stylish visuals and standout music, it offered an indie-like spirit on official hardware, redefining expectations for handheld originality. Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver didn't just revamp Gem 2, they exploded it with remastered graphics, Pokemon following you on screen, and a new post-game quest, the famed Kanto region. They turned nostalgia into gold standard design. Many fans regard this as the pinnacle of handheld Pokemon, owing to how lovingly built and deeply satisfying these titles are. Dawn of Sorrow continued Castlevania tradition with tight action, atmospheric storytelling, and a refined soul-catching system. It offered a mature tone, crisp visuals, and an engrossing gameplay loop. This DS installment proved handheld horror action games could feel cinematic and complex, a high watermark for the series and portable action titles. Once on the brink of cancellation, Fire Emblem Awakening redefined the franchise with deep storytelling, robust customization, and accessibility that welcome newcomers. Paired with the 3DS's improved visuals and amiibo support, and you had a revival in the making. Its success saved Fire Emblem as a franchise and introduced the idea of relationships, casual mode, and permadeath options, all while keeping strategic depth. Its influence echoes across future titles. Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon was a sequel that avoided direct comparison to the original by structuring itself across haunted missions. The 3D visuals and clever puzzles fueled a ghoulishly charming adventure with elegance and atmosphere. It proved that imaginative concepts, ghost catching, and quirky exploration could thrive on handheld hardware. Pokemon X and Y are the first fully 3D mainline Pokemon titles. They brought sweeping visual upgrades, voice clips, customizable trainers, and the newly introduced fairy type. It was a generational shift for the series. They made Pokemon feel more alive and fully realised, while staying grounded in the franchise's core hooks of catching, battling, and travelling. The 3DS proved to be a fitting home for that leap. A Link Between Worlds is a standout follow-up to The Link to the Past. This entry let Link become a painting, sliding across walls to solve puzzles and access areas in fresh ways. It was a homage to the SNES original and grounded it in nostalgia. It managed to respect Zelda's heritage whilst introducing inventive mechanics and fluid exploration. A modern classic that reiterated how Nintendo reinvents whilst honouring the past. From the dim-lit screen of the original Game Boy to the stereoscopic 3D of the 3DS, the evolution of Nintendo's handheld legacy is a fascinating tale of innovation, design, and cultural resonance. I hope you enjoyed the video today. It would be great to hear from you. What handheld memory stands out the most in your mind? And if you enjoyed this, hit that like button, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into gaming's golden history. Thanks again for watching.